our attention to this. The school calendar is in full swing, but for thousands of parents, the journey to and from the classroom remains a daily safety risk. Authorities are urgently calling on guardians to report errant scholar transport operators, warning that road deaths and illegal practices are preventable. Joining us now to unpack the critical safety standards and the role of parents in protecting children is Peggie, who's the founder of Wheel Well, and Zaitoon, who's the director of ChildSafe South Africa. A very good welcome to both of you. A very good morning as well, and thank you for joining us. Peggie, perhaps let's start with you as the founder of Wheel Well. What initially motivated you to focus on child road safety and school transport issues in our country?
Well, it started way back in 2012 when I helped out a colleague with a car seat campaign, and I immediately realized that there's absolutely nothing and nobody looking after our children in road safety. And at the time, 5,500 children died on our roads annually. So it was absolutely imperative. It felt like it was a baton handed to me and I needed to run with it. And 14 years down the line, we are still running, and there are still huge issues to be addressed to keep our children safe in and around vehicles.
Zaitoon, I mean, Peggie talks about there still being huge issues. In your view, what do you think are the most critical safety challenges that are facing children during their daily commute to and from school?
Thank you for the opportunity. I think what is very important that our vulnerable road users, and those are our pedestrian children walking to school, still faces the biggest risks walking to and to school on a daily basis. And the other issue that we are faced with is our children that is being transported that is not properly restrained within the vehicles, and this is whether through scholar transport or whether it is through within, in the care of the parents. And I think it is important to have these conversations that we are actually highlighting also to the parents their duty of care in terms of Section 28 of the Constitution, which places the best interest and safety of the child of paramount importance.
And that's a very important and critical point there, Peggie, that Zaitoon makes with regards to the parents themselves, because a lot of the times we look to the scholar transport operators in terms of that safety. How do recent accidents and fatalities in scholar transports reflect just the state of school transportation safety in our country? Peggie?
School transport it's difficult to even say how big the problem is because we don't have all the metrics. We don't have a national school transport policy that have standards to hold school transport accountable to. Government asks us to report unsafe vehicles, but I am not sure where we report it to. Do you report it to your local metro police? Do you report it to the RTMC? I'm actually not sure at all. And 68% of our children, and this is according to a child gauge study done in 2019, walk to school. And the roads that the children use, as in your video there, is not safe. When children share the same space as vehicles on their way to school, they are in danger. They are vulnerable. Children need to have safe routes to walk to school. They need visibility gear to make them more visible to motorists. And we need to urgently address a national school transport policy. We need to start talking. We need to get all the stakeholders, which are the parents, which are the schools, which are the communities. It is the Department of Transport, it's the Department of Justice. All of these departments need to sit together and we need to arm wrestle this out so that we can keep our children safe.
And arm wrestling this out, Zaitoon, maybe you could perhaps explain why the use of minibuses and taxis for school transport is particularly risky as compared to proper school buses?
That is a very difficult one to answer because if we look at what is happening in our country and also the services that is being rendered by the various modes of transport, it is an important one. I would like to say that when it comes to the improving scholar transport safety with the focus of roadworthiness and the fitness of the drivers, that is it falls the ambit of enforcing that and having oversight over that is with the National Department of Transport, the Road Traffic Management Corporation, and the provincial authorities. So it is important that we do work in collaboration, creating the awareness, as well as working with these government institutions to see what can be done to improve the state of road safety for our children. And if I just may add, through the Walking Safely to School project of ChildSafe, we have had good gains in working with local governments and with multi-stakeholders in trying to work improving safer school zones for our children within various reasons. But obviously, it is a big ask, it's a big task. But I think the more we are engaging more with government, the more we are working together as a collective with parental inputs as well and community inputs, I think we should move towards moving the needle, but it is a collective responsibility.
What would you say, Peggy, are the main then safety deficiencies in the current scholar transport system that need urgent attention?
First of all, Regulation 231 of the National Road Traffic Act addresses the loading of children in vehicles, where children under the age of 3 don't count for the loading of a vehicle. Children between 3 and 6, 2 kids count as one person. So a 13-seater, you can load 26 children. And you're not breaking any law because children are merely seen as mass and not as individuals. So that need to be urgently addressed for school transport for starters, because children have no other option but go to school. And so we want to see one child per seat with a seatbelt that can be used. Minibus taxis need to be roadworthy. The driver needs to be certified. Parents can look at the driver's license disc to see if that license is valid. They can ask the driver for his driver's license and PRDP, and they can have a good look at the vehicle. If it, vehicles, you can judge a book by its cover. If the tires are torn and the thread is thin, then that vehicle is not roadworthy. And every school has got a safety officer already. I appeal to schools that the safety officer is at the entrance where children are being dropped off, to be the adult to look at all of these things and make an assessment. Parents can't be everywhere all the time, and some parents leave home before their children do in the mornings. So it is us as a community that needs to look out as a collective, because our children are our future and we have to look after them.
Most certainly. Zaitoon, I mean, Peggy speaks about that community involvement, and she also touched on the current regulations around the vehicle loading and the safety standards that are falling short in protecting the children. How important is it for parents, for communities to be looking out for such, especially when it comes to the overloading of children onto vehicles? And many of the times, parents often would state that they are quite desperate for any transport to get their children to school.
A loaded one, and yes, we do understand the socioeconomic circumstances and the issues that parents are faced with. But I would like to say that, we all make choices and decisions at the end of the day. It's not an easy one. But I would like to also reinforce what Peggy has said in terms of the role that the parent, the caregiver, the caretaker of the child can take in terms of engaging with the scholar transport operator before the time and doing those checks, as Peggy also mentioned, so that you can ensure also from your side that you are also fulfilling your duty of care as the parent towards the safety of your child. And when it comes to also the schools act also make provision for the oversight role that the school body also has and SGBs have in terms of the safety of children. So I think there's a responsibility with these scholar transport operators that do engage with schools, that there's also an oversight, like Peggy also said, the safety officer at the school. It's a matter of us becoming a little bit more vigilant, having a more proactive approach, and doing a collective exercise in that duty of care to see what we can do to think differently instead of just leaving all of these. There are big responsibilities in terms of the government oversight for enforcement and roadworthy checkings and all of that. But I think it's just to highlight for us as the parents, as the caregivers, what can we do working with the school community, working within our communities to see collectively how do we do these checks and balances as a starting point so that we can also say as the caregivers and the parents that we are also bringing our part to the table in terms of keeping our children safe by engaging with the operators that we are entrusting our children's care into.
It certainly should be all hands on deck by all stakeholders. Ladies, thank you so much for your time and for joining us this morning. A very pertinent issue, especially when it comes to transporting young children to and from school.